In this edition of In the Boardroom with Lucy Marcus, I'm joined by Catherine Howarth, CEO of Fair Pensions based here in the UK. Catherine, Fair Pensions has been running a campaign about high pay. And one of the big questions is the shareholder spring just temporary or is it real?
I hope it's not temporary, but we don't yet know whether we're going to sustain this impressive and important shift that's taking place where we're seeing major shareholders take a robust line when the proposals on remuneration that are coming out of companies just aren't acceptable.
I mean, what's going to happen if they go back in the boardroom and they dither around and they come back out again and nothing has changed?
I think what's going to happen is that you're going to get even stronger votes against next year. Don't forget, we've only had 4 or 5 defeats of remuneration votes this season. WPP was an interesting one, a full defeat. And one of the reasons that happened is that last year shareholders showed a pretty strong dislike of the proposals and they weren't listened to, and shareholders punished that. So I think there is this interesting kind of interplay and dance between major shareholders and companies right now, and what shareholders want is to feel that they're being listened to.
So there have been some big defeats this shareholder season. Barclays, WPP.
Martin Sorrell is an exceptional business leader. He's built a brilliant company, and there's no displeasure with Martin Sorrell per se and with his performance at the company, but the proposals being put forward on his pay were regarded as excessive in advance of what shareholders were getting in terms of returns themselves, and shareholders
so the message
showed that
is,
yesterday.
We like Martin, we find the remuneration uncomfortable.
That's exactly the message. And what they really don't like is, we told you we weren't happy last year and you completely ignored it.
What's going to encourage shareholders to think more carefully about this issue? I mean, up until now, it's been about returns.
Okay, well, this is really fascinating because for a long period, institutional investors themselves have been under almost no scrutiny. And that's one of the things that's shifting this season. So one of the reasons we're seeing these stronger votes is that shareholders themselves are being held to account for how they deploy the vote on behalf of pension funds and ultimately on behalf of millions of very ordinary people in our economy who are saving for their retirement and who depend on sustainable, healthy financial returns and well-governed companies to retire one day.
Do you think that people who are investing in pension funds care about the governance of companies?
I don't think they understand that all too well, but what they are concerned about is what's going to happen to my pension savings. Are they well protected? Are they looked after? I hand over my money in good faith every month in my paycheck, and it goes into this black hole called pension fund. And I want to be sure that the people that look after that are doing a good job of that. And that means, where necessary, taking a tough line with boards.
And so do you think it's necessary for the people who are investing in pension funds to speak up themselves and let the pension funds know?
Absolutely. So one of the things we do at Fair Pensions is we create online tools that give ordinary folk the chance to interact with their pension provider, send a message, encourage them to take a responsible investment approach, to take, where appropriate, a tough line on voting.
Are they speaking up? I mean, are they coming back?
Yeah, we're getting thousands of emails and messages reaching pension schemes, and it's a wake-up call. It's a positive, constructive part, and it's one of the factors behind the shareholder spring.
We've had the shareholder spring now, and we've had people put their voices out there, people on Twitter, people in the press, investors, institutions. What happens next?
Okay, so what happens next is that shareholders have to take more initiative. I think what's happened is shareholders have, really strengthened their position in terms of saying no to stuff that's coming out of companies that they regard as unacceptable. I'd like to see shareholders saying, look, this is what we want, and being a lot more proactive about
forcing engagement.
For example, in the whole area of executive remuneration, saying, look, these are the kind of principles that we'd like built into the design of executive reward, ones which really work with shareholders' long-term interests, ones which are not just a handout, an excessive handout for a mediocre performance, which has been, of course, a problem,
but do you think
both in the UK, in the US, and in other parts of the world.
But do you feel as if organizations like ISS and Glass Lewis, these agencies that actually help make recommendations, is that a sort of once a year sort of thing? I mean, are you thinking that it needs to be more an all year round engagement?
Oh, absolutely. So, the design of these remuneration awards is being constructed all during the year. Then there's just voting season where ISS, Glass Lewis, PERC and others make recommendations on whether you should or shouldn't support that as a shareholder. But we need to get out of just rejecting what's bad and into proposing something that's better, different, and will last for the long term.
So what's your biggest issue for this year?
My biggest issue is investor accountability. I think the major institutional investors that cast millions of votes on behalf of lots of us in the economy that trust those institutions to look after our pension savings have to be more accountable, and we're beginning to see that really positive shift. We want to accelerate that.
And what do you think the most pressing issue is for boards this year?
I think the most pressing issue for boards is being able to listen to their major shareholders and really be responsive. So I think that's the key issue.
And to act.
Yeah,
on what they
listen and act.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Good for listening. A little more acting.
Yeah.
Good. Well, Catherine, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you, Lucy.
And delighted to have you on In the Boardroom with Lucy Marcus.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.